For over 2 decades, I sat behind that bench and watched people lie about money, relationships, and responsibility. And over time, I learned that people do not just lie with their words. They lie with their silence, their posture, and the kind of confidence that does not belong to them. But there was one thing I never did in that courtroom, not once in 25 years, and that was cry. Until the day James Mitchell walked into my courtroom. He did not look dangerous or dishonest. He looked like a man who had already lost everything and was simply waiting for the world to take whatever was left. James Mitchell stood in front of me with his hands trembling slightly against the wooden rail, and at 67 years old, he looked far older than his age, as if life had worn him down piece by piece over time. His military jacket was faded and worn, but the Purple Heart pinned to his chest still caught the light, and medals like that do not lie about the kind of man standing before you. Across from him sat Patricia Brennan, perfectly composed in an expensive suit, carrying the kind of confidence that suggests the outcome is already decided before the case even begins. She was suing him for unpaid rent, property damage, and lease violations, and everything about her presentation was clean, organized, and convincing. On paper, it looked like an easy case. I looked down at the file, then back at James, and something about the situation did not feel right, because guilty people usually try to defend themselves, but this man looked like he had already accepted defeat. And defeat like that always has a story behind it. Patricia began speaking in a cold, businesslike tone, explaining that this was a straightforward case of a tenant who had damaged her property and refused to take responsibility. She described complaints, broken fixtures, and repeated issues, then presented photographs that showed the apartment in poor condition. And every piece of evidence she provided appeared to support her claim. It was neat, structured, and persuasive. I turned to James and asked if he had anything to say, and for a long moment he said nothing, allowing silence to fill the entire courtroom. Then slowly, he reached into his jacket and pulled out a folded letter that looked worn from being carried everywhere. He told me it was written by his daughter before she died. In that moment, the atmosphere in the courtroom shifted because truth has a way of entering a room without asking permission. I took the letter and unfolded it carefully, and as I began to read, I felt something change, not emotion at first, but recognition that this was not just a personal note. This was something far more important. I read the letter once, then again more slowly, before looking up and addressing Patricia. I told her that the letter was written by his daughter, Sarah, a veteran and Army medic, who had served 2 tours overseas, and that she had once been a tenant in her apartment complex. Then I stated clearly that Sarah had been evicted while she was dying. The courtroom fell into complete silence, the kind of silence that carries weight rather than sound. Patricia shifted in her seat and tried to dismiss the letter as irrelevant, but by that point, I already knew it was the key to everything. I explained that what the letter described suggested a pattern and that I had my team review her business practices the night before. What they found was not a coincidence or a misunderstanding, it was a system. I asked her how many veterans she had evicted in the past 3 years, and when she hesitated and gave a lower estimate, I corrected her with the actual number, 23. That moment changed the energy in the room, because numbers do not lie, even when people try to. I continued by outlining the pattern we had discovered, explaining that each eviction occurred within a similar time frame and was followed by excessive damage claims that forced tenants into debt. This was not right. It was calculated. Then I returned to Sarah's story and explained that she had been battling stage 4 cancer while living in Patricia's apartment, and that she had asked for time to manage her situation. Instead of compassion, she was given an eviction notice. 2 months later, she was gone. But before she died, she wrote that letter, not as a goodbye, but as a warning and a form of protection. I read her words aloud in the courtroom, and no one spoke because the truth does not need noise to be understood. At that moment, everything became clear. This was not just business. It was exploitation. It was a system designed to gain trust, wait for vulnerability, and then take advantage of it. And what made it worse was that James Mitchell was not chosen by accident. He was targeted. He was the father of the same woman who had already suffered under that system. And that was not coincidence. It was deliberate. When another veteran stood up and confirmed the same experience, the pattern became undeniable. This was no longer a simple case. It was something far more serious. I did not need more arguments or delays. I needed to stop what was happening. So I looked at James and told him clearly that he owed nothing. Then I turned to Patricia, and in that moment, everything shifted. Because sometimes justice is not complicated, it is simply clear. And for the first time in 25 years, I felt something break through the control I had always maintained in that courtroom. It was not weakness, it was the undeniable weight of truth. And truth always finds its way to the surface, no matter how long it has been buried. If you believe stories like this deserve to be told and heard, make sure you subscribe, because somewhere out there someone is facing the same kind of injustice, and they need to know that fighting back is possible. This is justice served, and this is what happens when the truth refuses to stay silent.